Hi, this is Ian Desher, author of William Shakespeare's Star Wars, and you are listening to Coffee with Kenobi. With Dan Z, this is the podcast you're looking for.
What is this?
Cassius T. Please join me. You know my name, but I don't know yours.
I'd like to speak with you.
About what?
My niece. The one you apprehended.
Your niece? Who are you?
Look, I had no choice. He was gonna kill me if I didn't cooperate, but I took care of him before he could get to you. You're welcome, by the way.
Then how do you know the Empire's not on their way?
If that were the case, they would already be here, and since they are not, that means you have chosen to disregard Imperial protocol. As I said, a man of intelligence.
This is Ashley Eckstein, Ahsoka Tano from Star Wars The Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to Coffee with Kenobi, your family-friendly, spoiler-free Star Wars podcast where intelligent conversation and a splash of humor bring fans together from across the galaxy. I'm your host, Dan Zare, educator and Star Wars author. Whether you are a lifelong Jedi Master or just hopped off your first Star Cruiser, grab your calf and join us as we explore the mythology, philosophy, and wonder of a galaxy far, far away, one conversation at a time. Coffee with Kenobi is more than a podcast. It's a community. Together we celebrate the people, stories, and experiences that make Star Wars so special, creating a space where fans can come together and share their voices. Thank you to the official travel partner of Coffee with Kenobi, MEI Travel and Mouse Fan Travel. Check out coffeewithkenobi.com/mousefan-travel for a no-cost, no-obligation quote and let them know Coffee with Kenobi and Dan Zare sent you. We have got a great show for you today. Craig Dickinson of Reading Between the Reels joins us to talk about chapters 3 and 4 of Maul Shadow Lord. So pull up a chair, grab your favorite mug, and let's have Coffee with Kenobi. It's time, friends, to talk about the chapters of Maul Shadow Lord. I love, by the way, that both Maul Shadow Lord and The Mandalorian use chapters instead of episodes, because chapters you typically think of literature and books and storytelling. So who's a good person to have on the show that is in his wheelhouse? In fact, we've got two English teachers on today. Of course, myself, Dan Zare, and more importantly, my very special guest, a longtime friend of the show, all the way back to the beginning. In fact, he is the co-host of Reading Between the Reels, the one and only Craig Dickinson. Craig, welcome back to Coffee with Kenobi.
Oh, Dan, I'm glad to be back. Thanks for the kind words. And yeah, I'm ready to just dig into these episodes. There's some good stuff for analysis here.
Yes, there is. So we will dive into it. We've got chapter 3, Whispers in the Unknown. And then we've got chapter 4, Pride and Vengeance. We will do like we did last week with the illustrious David Motters. And we will we'll spend half the show on chapter 3 and half the show on chapter 4. So Craig, without further ado, actually, before I get into that,
sure.
We didn't have the good fortune to hear what you thought about the first two episodes. So just kind of overall, before we even talk about chapters 3 and 4, what do you think of chapters 1 and 2? Were you excited about this Maul series? Did you think it was necessary? And what do you think of the first two?
Okay, those are separate questions.
Indeed, they are.
Necessary? No. Oh, I thoroughly enjoyed it though. I'm a big Sam Witwer guy from way back, and
for sure.
And I've had limited interactions. Yeah, and I've had limited interactions with him online. He's the reason I teach Star Wars the way I teach Star Wars. And
wow.
then, I had some feedback from him when I told him I was doing that. So big fan of his, and I love his take on Maul. And it's definitely, I know you guys talked a little bit about how it's a little bit of a slow burn, but the older I get, the more I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. So let's just take all the time we need.
For sure. We're not always expected in Star Wars, but certainly very welcome indeed. All right, so then just give me your one word and overall initial thoughts on Whispers in the Unknown.
Okay, for this first one, I'm going to use the word delicious.
Not burgeoning. Okay.
No, not this time. Yeah, no, it's very slow, but and really when we get to my letter grade, which we'll get to at the end, I really enjoyed most of this episode, and really all of the Maul stuff, just the way his conversations. I'm just going to say that to this point
Sure.
with Devin, just slow and tempting and just deliciously evil.
Okay. My word is relationships, or lack thereof, I guess, because this whole thing, if you look it over and break it down, it's a lot of conversations between two people. There might be some in the background on occasion, but it's really about two people and sharing philosophies and trying to convince the other person of their philosophy, sometimes through subterfuge, sometimes through an authentic want of dialogue. But either way, it causes for some great juxtaposition of what it means to believe what you believe. And I think we see a lot more in the next episode too, but I think it's pretty ripe for this one. And so let's just talk about Maul's interactions with Devin. She just broke herself out of the prison. It's like basically like a giant tube you go where you put your money in the bank and they whisk it through the big tunnel, but that's kind of what it looks like. And so he brings her in. They have some tea, which I really liked. And he just comes across very suave and very gentlemanly. Talk about the conversation and the way that he it's like a dance where she is not a willing participant, but yet she's still there for the majority of it.
Yeah. So the first thing that I noticed is that it's almost 3 minutes into this episode before we have anybody say anything at all. Which is just exquisite, just making you wait for it.
Sure.
But then, we see immediately he is tempting Devin to see things from his perspective. He acknowledges that what she's heard about him is true, but challenges the interpretation of that. Right? Even like, well, you murdered people. And he's like, well, one must do what, one can to survive.
And you can hear it in the performance, like the tone, like he's like, well,
yeah,
like he doesn't quite back away from it, but he's like, well, but you think you know who I am. You've already settled that. And do you want me to be that person? As if in a way, kind of putting the responsibility and onus on her that his actions could be because this is how she chose to see him. So can you trust the truth as you've been told, as your gut instincts tell you? Or maybe you should open up to a different way. It's pretty dangerous. It's very snake-like, but it's also, there's an element of charm to it, which I think we've seen it very, very sporadically with Maul over the years, but this is like another level.
Yeah, and there's a quote that he says early on that stood out to me that I wanted just to bring up here. Yep. And he says, I can tell that you are settled on who you believe I am.
Correct.
Would you like me to be that person? I am capable. And just, yeah, he acknowledge again, just that it's that dance. I love the way you said that, where he's like, yeah, I'm going to acknowledge what you say is, these are facts, but your interpretation is different than mine. And we'll see if I can get you to my side of that.
Right. Just tell me what you see. And she says, I see a murderer. And then he throws the whole thing about, he does this a number of times. He throws the whole idea of the Jedi and their fall and their act. But then he does something that I want to believe. Now, I think the problem with Maul, and I may have said this last week, is that it's hard to create a story built around a villain. Well, for one thing, the end of the story. There's really not a lot of room for redemption there. You don't really see it until like the last few seconds of his life when he dies in the episode Twin Sons. I mean, really, if we're being really honest, we can insert other things, but we have to go with what's on the page or on the screen, so to speak. But there's a moment, Craig, and I'm sure you caught it too, where he talks about, the way we were raised, we were led to believe one thing. Things were taken from us either by our masters or through unforeseen circumstances. But by the way, all of it is from one guy, my master. He doesn't say the name Darth Sidious, but we know who he's talking about. So I was I won't say I was moved, but I was aware that he was being honest. Like, I don't buy into the Sith always tell the truth. That's nonsense. The Sith don't tell the truth. They do a version of the truth that's they do they do trickery, they do logical fallacies, but this is interesting here.
Yeah, the part he talked about where he says, the Empire is responsible for the death of my brother and my mother. Then
Right, which we forget.
Which we absolutely we forget. Like, we have a common enemy. The downfall of the Jedi was caused by the Purge in Order 66, much the same way that my family was killed. So this, we're not that different. It seems to be his tack on this.
Right. These institutions were fragile, that we both believed in, and they're gone. So it's almost like he's got this thing of, look, why don't you just not believe in anything like me? It's way easier. It's way easier. And what I like about this, so I watched this a couple times. I watched the screeners, and then time passed, and then I watched them again before you and I chatted tonight. And what I was liking, the first time, I think in my mind I had that Devin wants to go along with him. She wants to acquiesce to this. She wants to kind of give in. But the second time I watch it, I don't see that at all. I see somebody who is aware of the danger, who's certainly scared, which is very healthy and understandable, but she doesn't let it get the best of her. And she gets away, but I never saw even an inkling of her thinking, maybe I should give this guy a chance. I don't know. I was kind of relieved. I feel like that's too low of a hanging fruit. You know what I mean?
No, I do. Yeah, I agree. And in this episode, for sure, we don't see her bending.
No,
she's still pretty, strong in her stance.
So is there anything else about this conversation before they start fighting, I guess, or even after, that you want to bring up before we move on to something else?
I think just that there's a little bit of reference to, which I'm assuming is going to be the Inquisitors. But just him coming out of the shadows, which is again, like the metaphor of you can't really see what's going on. I think repeatedly that they're playing with the light in that way.
Sure. Well, I know I gave you a shout out last week because I was looking forward to talking to you about this. But even before we move on to any other conversational aspects of this, the opening art, the opening sequence of this, the backgrounds look like they're brushed with paint.
Mm-hmm.
And the stylings of this is significantly different from what we've seen in Star Wars animation. And I mean, I'm not going to keep saying it's art because it is art. Everything is art. But this is like a different level. And for me, it creates kind of that gritty, atmospheric tone that the original A New Hope is famous for, but also elevates it to another distinguished level. And I think that is mirrored by the fact that this is linear storytelling that isn't episodic in nature in any way. It's like this truly is one long story or a series of chapters, much more so than Mandalorian, because that in a way was sort of episodic too, for the most part. So I think that the artistic choices here really play that out. And I was really interested in what you thought about that, especially because you go quite a bit into cinematography and different artistic forms in your podcast.
Yeah, no, I was definitely struck by just the lighting is exquisite in this series so far. The deep shadows, this is not a cartoon. It is so detailed. It's ridiculous. And like you mentioned the painting thing, there's so many close-ups on Maul's face in this series so far, and it looks almost like watercolors.
It does.
It is beautiful, but when I first started watching this, I was okay, is this going to fall more in line with like the Rebels animation style, which is different than Clone Wars or Clone Wars style? And it definitely leans more Clone Wars, but it's not that either. It's something new.
Mm-hmm. How do you think it adds to the story?
Well, I think for me, it's really a matter of animation's taking another step.
Yes.
A lot of people will kind of dismiss animation and it's for kids. Mm-hmm. And I think that if you were to introduce somebody to this, had not seen Star Wars animation, be like, this is what I'm talking about when I say it all counts. You need to watch this. This is important stuff. Like, there's a prestige level to this.
Prestige is a good word.
The storytelling is elite in this series so far, in my opinion, but just as much the art is as well.
And I like that it's adult in tone,
mm-hmm.
but it doesn't have to resort to, like, I used to call it HBO syndrome, where you're extra violent or use a lot of extra language because you can. Although that, I don't know how well that fits anymore. But this has a mature aspect to it, but nowhere near on the level of Daredevil, for example, which is it's supposed to be. But there's a sophistication, which I love to use that word, in the storytelling that lends itself to there's something larger going on. And I think that's tied in quite well with the character of Lawson, who early on is so fascinating. And I honestly, even though it's early, I'm more interested in him when he's on screen than Maul. I pretty much know what I'm going to get with Maul. I don't anticipate necessarily a ton of character growth, although it doesn't mean it won't happen. But Lawson is someone I don't know anything about. And we get to see him interact a bit more with his son, whose name is Riley, when he's playing sports. And they mention the sport once. I don't remember. I didn't write it down.
I didn't catch it either.
I don't remember what it is, but it kind of looks like space lacrosse to me. But the whole sequence where he's hanging out with his son, his son's friends of their family have saved them. So he's like, no, I got a greater view here. And you kind of get the sense that even before the Jedi shows up, right? Before he actually has any kind of a conversation with Daki, you just get the sense he's not one to sit still. You can tell he's antsy. You can tell he's got his mind on this case and capturing this mysterious villain named Maul. But your heart still breaks in a more of an authentic way, because this kid, he's not like angry or aggressive or like this archetypal bratty teen who feels forlorn because of his parents. Like, there's sadness there, and you can see it on Lawson too, but I feel like he distracts himself with his work. There's a lot more that we can certainly go into, and I have to be careful what I say. But it's, I feel like this is the authenticity that is bringing me into this series more than anything else.
Yeah. A couple things I thought. First off, I kind of dig the almost like Law and Order vibe. The police investigation thing.
For sure.
Although I will say, like, I kind of opposite of you. I'm loving the Maul stuff so much that I'm like, get back the Maul.
No, that's good.
But the one thing I thought was really interesting was that when he finally, at what was it, Two Boots basically is the one. Like, get your priorities in order and go to the match, and I'll take care of the other stuff. Mm-hmm. Is that even when he goes to the match, like, he can't get away from his job. Like,
right.
He shows up and they're like, oh, here's an alert, you got to go. Which I thought was really kind of ironic. Like, he made the step, right? Like, fine, I'll I'll put that aside and be a good dad. And even then he just gets sucked in. Not his own fault, really.
And yet, when you said that, it unlocked a few things for me. So thank you. Really, he does. I guess he thinks he's doing something good by showing up, but that's your job, dude.
Yeah.
You're a dad more than anything else. But he can't. And you can tell there's some insecurity there. He mentions his mom or his wife. Is that in this episode or the next one?
They do mention her briefly in this one.
That's what I thought.
You get the bigger reveal in the next one.
Right. But this is where I love fiction. And I'm sure you'll agree with this. Yes, he's distracted and you can't blame him. How many times, and I'll put myself out on this, how many times are you with your family or your kids or your wife and you get out your phone? Oh, let me check the weather. Oh, let me check the schedule. Oh, let me see if I heard back from so-and-so. And then what does your whole life become in that moment? Instead of embracing the moment with your children or your family, you're on your phone. You're thinking about your job, you're grading papers, you're whatever. Like, he's us by proxy in a very different way. But to me, that's more relatable than somebody who's taking out crime syndicates and wants to take over a planet before the Empire shows up. Again, not a bad thing, not a criticism of Maul as a character, but this is some of why I think Lawson is so interesting to me.
Yeah, no, for sure. I immediately thought of like, okay, I didn't put my phone on Do Not Disturb. I got to take ESPN alerts off.
Yep.
All that stuff can wait while I'm doing this. But yeah, because you do, it gets sucked in. You get that whole FOMO thing immediately. And you're like, no, just keep your focus here where it belongs.
Right. So it makes him interesting, relatable, and conflicted, but for ways that are realistic in the real world. Job, something that is eating at you is for a good. Like he wants to keep people safe, but he's ignoring his own son in the process. And I think it's worth revisiting. You mentioned Two Boots. Two Boots. Tell me about Two Boots. And I mean, we'll say more of him will be talked about in chapter 4. But the only thing I want to say about Two Boots in chapter 3 is he actually drinking the calf? Like he's always bringing the calf. He's always got us. I love how much they're doing stuff with coffee in this. But why is he even carrying it around? Like, is he drinking it? Is it motor oil?
It's a cop motif, very much.
Of course.
He's the straight-laced guy, right? Who wants to follow procedure all the time.
Yep.
But he's a good cop, right? We like, he's very likable, but yeah, it's interesting that you have that push-pull repeatedly. Like, well, we have to bring in the Empire. This is procedure. We have to do, which makes sense. A droid would do that, right? That's what he's programmed to do.
Absolutely. Towards the end of this, sort of the climactic moment is there's a fight. There's this big shipment with the Pikes and Vario's men, and then they show up. There's a lot of destruction, and then we have Maul reveals himself, and there's a really nice fight at the end. Talk to me about the fight sequence. What kind of stood out for you? More manipulation for sure.
Yeah. Let me see. So we saw this a couple times in the previous episodes. I can't remember which one, but we see Maul's shadow on Devon,
which is cool.
Just like that, she absolutely cannot escape him.
Right.
And then what I thought was really interesting, he kind of alternate. We talked about the dance. I love that you used it before. That now he's kind of moved to this. He's switching back and forth between flattery and insults to kind of keep her off balance.
Yeah.
And then the end of the lightsaber fight where we hear Ratama.
Yep.
Just chills.
It's awesome. And you feel like he's sort of trying at the end. A little bit.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's that last dissolve into shadow where it leaves it on his eyes at the end. Yeah. Just gorgeous. And like, you didn't have to do that. You could have just faded to black. No, you go nice slow dissolve.
Yeah, and he's constantly trying to make her mad. When he always says, you're not going to have to, you're not a prisoner here, but yet he keeps getting away. But he lets her leave ish before taking back his lightsaber. He hauntingly calls out her name. There's so much power in naming, and it kind of gives her like a shudder that this guy is getting like into her psyche. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's pretty great. I don't really have a ton more to say about this episode. I mean, there's a little bit of the back and forth with the Pikes and Marg Krim and setting up what's going to happen in chapter 4. But is there anything else you want to talk about in this episode that we haven't covered yet?
I'm just looking back through my notes, and I guess I got it jumbled. That the reveal that Lawson's ex-wife works for the Empire is in this episode. I thought it was in the next one, but it is in this one.
Okay,
which I thought was a really interesting twist and made a lot of sense for Lawson's motivation. And I'm hoping that we're going to get more of that tension. That immediately made me think of Lost Stars for some reason.
Oh, I can see that.
Yeah, just because you had the split on two sides of the conflict. But
so not only does he not want the Empire to show up because he's not a fool, he says he's seen it before. Though don't we know much more than that? But maybe he's afraid that if the Empire shows up, then he'll ever be with his estranged wife again. Maybe. Yeah. Maybe. I don't want to put too much out there that I haven't actually seen, but it's hard not to think of that because again, there's some layers to him that I find interesting. And again, maybe the coolest mustache in animation. Sorry, Mario.
It's a good look.
It is a good look. All right, so let's give letter grade on this one and any last minute thoughts on it before we move on.
Yeah. So for me, I said this is how I got to what I have. I have an A+ for the Maul stuff, and I have a C for everything else. So I'm going to go with a solid B on this episode.
Okay, I was going to say you got to combine this for me.
Yeah.
Okay. Any reasons why?
You know what? I think for me, it just hit all the right notes with all of the Maul conversation. I was just so invested in that. And I know you can't have that the whole time. There's other things going on. But I was just so enamored with those sequences that I was like, okay, fine, we'll go back to the investigation. Okay, fine, we'll spend some time with Lawson. And I like it a lot more in the next one, but just in this one, I was just like, yes, give me Maul, give me Maul, give me Maul.
I love it. Well, that's very good. I love that. And I like that you kind of broke it down too. What surprises me about this is I certainly enjoy when you take a formula and try to add some freshness to it and some vibrancy. I didn't expect to like the other non-lightsaber stuff as much as I have. Rarely is that the case for me. The Force, lightsabers, Jedi, the Sith, everything about that mythology is so endlessly fascinating to me. But I find myself equally intrigued, if not more on occasion, by what's going on with the detective aspect. That one, my word for the chapter 2 was gumshoe. And I just love that aspect of it. And not to mention the fact the psychology of Maul trying to lure Devin in, but also doing it from a very different way than we've seen Sith try to recruit an apprentice. You know, this could have been paint by numbers or very rote, and it's not. And I'm pleasantly surprised by that, because it would be easy to fall into that just because that is a tried and true formula. But this, even though it's a formula, this doesn't feel formulaic. And I'm very happy about that. I'm very happy about that. So each chapter continues to get a little bit better for me. I'm giving this an A-.
All right.
Okay, let's move on to Pride and Vengeance. We get a lot more of an escalation of what's going on in very many areas. But Craig, give me one word for Pride and Vengeance and sort of initial thoughts on that.
Heartbreaking.
Tell me why.
Ultimately, the way it ends, that we kind of have to just give up with the Empire finally shows up. Like, we've been pushing back this whole time. We're Lawson. I'm much more involved in enjoying Lawson a lot more in this one. I'm much more on board with the Lawson story in this particular episode, and so I really just felt for him that, because even in the previous episode, and I was going to mention this, I forgot to, that Two Boots goes over his head and he defends him to his captain.
Yeah, and doesn't even seem offended.
And he's not mad. No. And then he does it again, and then, the thing he's been fearing for almost 4 episodes happens, and we're just left with, okay, now it's going to hit the fan now.
Right. I would call this one, my word for this would be betrayal. So it's very, not unlike what you're talking about. The stuff with Two Boots is really upsetting and maddening because you don't expect it to go that way for reasons we'll talk about. And a fantastic cliffhanger, because this is why you bring the popcorn to the Star Wars, kids. This is why. All right, so where do you want to take this one?
So one thing that I get, how do I put this? I'll put it this way. Like, Rogue One has a lot of different planets in it, and they throw up the names of the planets. Mm-hmm. I'm such a Star Wars nerd. I want to know the names of each of the planets. If I don't without having to go and look for it, but I will if I need to. So when I saw the planet, I'm like, okay, that's the home planet of the Pikes, right? That's got to be right. They didn't tell us that it was, but like visually, it absolutely lines up. It's Obadiah, right? So we get to go back there. We saw it a little bit in the previous episode, but there's a shot that's like almost exactly right out of the Clone Wars. Yeah. And then immediately I'm like, okay, so the visual language of Star Wars planet landing remains consistent. And I love it. I know it's repetitive, but I don't care. I want to watch it come all the way in, several shots as it lands, and then I want to see it completely land. I want to see the drawbridge or whatever lower, and guys start walking off. And I was like, yep, there it is. I'm home. That feels good.
I love that opening sequence. It is Obadiah. And the whole thing where Maul shows up and there's a fight. And then Vario looks like he's betrayed Maul. Foolishly, he stuns him. And then it turns out to be subterfuge. And then there's a really cool kind of speaking of Rogue One, a Sith moment where Maul jumps out and kills Mark Krim. I love that sequence because it surprised me. Like, they're they're playing on our expectations. They're playing on the Pike leader's expectations. And the Pike leader, Mark Krim, has a big role in Clone Wars. He's very active in some of the comics and stuff with the Shadow Collective. So this is cool. This is a really great action sequence. This is probably my favorite Maul sequence of the series so far.
It's pretty great. And it's the way it starts with him just coming through that like threefold door, all backlit in red, and this wide shot. It was just glorious.
Yes.
Like, yeah, you're in trouble now.
The lighting.
And then just,
the lighting.
Oh yeah.
Good.
Oh no, just how quickly he just went through and just mowed through guys left and right. And of course, force pulling the lightsaber right through Krim for revenge. Just brutal. So the show cuts. It's obviously it's not bloody because it's lightsabers, but there's a lot of the stuff they cut away from to not show us as much as they could. This is one where they didn't hold back as much as they have.
Right. Well, speaking of not holding back, this is the moment where, like, front of the first part betrayal, because we see what happens with Two Boots. The first thing that happens with Two Boots and Lawson, where Two Boots, through fear, if droids can have fear or panic because he's not following the rules and the protocols, we're not equipped to apprehend this fugitive without adequate support. Only the Empire can save us because that's what they've been told. And then he sneaks into that room, and I didn't know what was going to happen. Part of me wanted him to notify the Empire because I just thought it would be fun to throw that key wrench in there. But he deactivates him. He says he's sorry, and then it kind of changes the trajectory of things. And this is a moment where it jumps out. There's a sense of verisimilitude in this, but you can also distance yourself because it's a droid. But again, as you said, they've established a nice rapport with each other. But it's a nice character moment that has a pretty awful payoff at the end.
And this just occurred to me. Do you think that Two Boots felt betrayed by Lawson in that moment, and that's what spurred him on to follow through and bring the Empire in?
I've thought about that a lot. And because he's a droid, you wouldn't think they would carry that over. But we have seen droids show some pretty serious emotion. So it's hard not to think that there might be a hint, just a smidge of spite. Or it could just be, you temporarily paused me, but this is still my plan all along, and I hope you will forgive me. So I don't know. I think if there is any spite there, it's very slim. It's maybe us putting it in there because that's how we would feel. I know I would certainly feel that way. What do you think?
Yeah, as I'm saying that, because I'm just thinking this through, I hadn't really considered that. I think that really probably it's more just like these are, he's an obstacle to doing what I need to do. Right. And if I don't take this next opportunity to contact the Empire, I might get thwarted again. So I need to just proceed with what I was doing. Yeah, I don't necessarily put there's a negative emotion toward Lawson in it. And I just think Lawson is an obstacle to doing what I need to do.
Right. Despite his clear loyalty, and it gets blurred because in the previous episode, he encouraged him to go spend time with his son.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Which that has to be from a place of empathy. But again, it's pure logic. It makes Two Boots frustrating, but also it just makes the dynamic more compelling. Compelling is the word I keep coming back to. So maybe this is our perfect combination of our worlds colliding, because there's a great scene here where Maul shows up as hologram, and he and Lawson have this fabulous back and forth that I absolutely love. What do you want to say about before I tee off here?
Oh, well, I love how Maul is just like, yeah, you're greatly outmatched, and so I'm going to offer you protection. Keep the Empire out of things. We'll work together. Again, the common enemy, the same thing he kind of used on Devon. And then when Lawson refuses, and then the last thing he says, I admire your spirit, Captain. Die well.
Yes. Because isn't there a part like of the whole thing where you just like, gosh, maybe they can get along. Which of course is insane.
On Maul's terms, sure.
On Maul's terms. And there's a part of me the second time I watched it where I thought, okay, well, maybe if he just leaves him alone, but I've seen The Godfather. It doesn't go well. It doesn't go well. But I love like there's an authentic respect. I think Maul is not just being supercilious here. I think he really does respect and admire Lawson's grit. And when you watch it, Lawson doesn't seem scared. Like he doesn't seem intimidated. He doesn't really know a lot about Maul. If he had the pantheon of fight sequences we have seen as an audience of Maul, he might be different, but maybe not. He's a pretty tough dude. And I don't know that he's thinking of his family here because he's sort of acting like just a guy with nothing to lose. Now, he's not reckless, but he's committed to his job. He's committed to his post. He's committed to keeping Janek safe. And so there's I don't know that I want to say a playfulness to this, but it's like, hey, how do you know the Empire's not on their way? And Maul says, you know what? If that was true, they'd already be here. And obviously you're ignoring Imperial protocol, which, by the way, kudos, man. You're a man of intelligence. You know, they offer a truce, but of course there's no such thing as a truce when it comes to Maul, and it comes to an attack. But I think it's my favorite scene in the whole episode.
Yeah, I love that you brought up the Godfather because like that's the thing that Maul initially was just this essentially silent assassin.
Yep.
Right? Distraction was all he was. And then to have him really take on the role of gangster and do it effectively. Like that's absolutely what's happening here. Like he's bringing the Shadow Collective back together. Like he's a negotiator. He's very smooth. All of these, he's thinking 4 steps ahead. Like Sidious has trained him well.
Exactly. He'd be proud if he wasn't, him.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And what else? There's a couple of things I want to talk about, but are there any questions that you have or things you want to bring up?
Well, I think the conversation a little bit earlier in this episode where Daki and Devin are talking about what their role is at this point, I thought was really fascinating. Devin's great. Like, we need to be the ones that take down Maul. We're the only ones capable of doing this. And Daki's more, he kind of is a compromise. He's like, we can kind of just feed the police this intel. We can still participate, but not take on, this more actionable role to do this. So I thought that was really the Jedi are still hunted at this time, right? And then that doesn't even get brought up.
Of course, this is like the worst time to be a Jedi.
Yeah, we don't quite know exactly the timeline, but it's not that far removed from Order 66. So just by putting their heads up with a lightsaber, like, yeah, you're on but not even really a backwater planet. We don't know that much about Janix, but it's pretty metropolitan. Like it's not the middle of nowhere. It's not in the Outer Rim. So
no, but there is a line somewhere where they talk about it. It's how they've been surviving for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So there has to be, I don't know what the time jump is, but there has to be a decent amount of time, but it's still extremely early in the whole process of, it seems like it's fairly common knowledge, why don't you tell me you were a Jedi? Well, you can probably figure that one out.
Right.
Which happens at the end. But I like this too. And again, I looked at this through the filter I had for chapter 3, where does Devin want to help and defeat Maul because she wants, as Daki fears, vengeance? Or is she saying, hey, great power, great responsibility. We can stop him. We're Jedi, or I'm a Padawan or whatever. But we're the only ones who can help keep everyone safe from him. And again, I don't find any sort of dark side seed nurturing in any of that. It's more like this is the right thing to do. Wouldn't Yoda do that? We know Anakin would do that, but he would certainly have a little more guff behind it, and he wouldn't take no for an answer. Obi-Wan might waffle, but he's also, when you're older and wiser, you're thinking, I've got to keep you safe. You're my charge. She's not actually his niece, but they clearly have a nice bond. I really like the moment that they actually embrace and hug, like they're happy to see each other. There's a nice familial sequence there we don't always see between Jedi. So this makes them kind of stand out a little bit more too. Unrelated, I absolutely love Daki's look. I think he's a fabulous looking character. But it makes sense again that Devin would want to pursue Maul because that is the right thing to do. That is perhaps more Jedi-like than hiding and trying to preserve.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree that she's not seeking vengeance on Maul. I take it more as she has almost insider knowledge, right? She spent more time with him.
True.
She knows, she doesn't just have the legends at this point. She's been in his presence long enough to know, okay, this dude is really cunning and he's not going to stop.
Mhm.
And so I even know more about how big of a threat this is.
Right.
And
Plus
something
she's-
else
Yeah, go ahead.
okay. Something you mentioned earlier that I've just been it's just been percolating since you talked about, him bringing in this apprentice and how he's trying to do this. And I just immediately thought of Ezra. And I know that's much farther
Sure.
down the timeline. So it's going to be interesting to see how this goes with Devin and what, if anything, Maul learns in his tactics that did or did not work with Devin that he's going to later, he's going to apply to his pursuit of Ezra down the line.
Right. Well, that's interesting. I'm going to table that. So Devin.
Yeah. Yeah. No, me
says-
too. That's just, it's there.
Exactly. It is there. There's a lot of fun stuff here. Devin says, we're the Jedi. We can bring him to justice.
Mhm.
Right. She wants justice. And she's not showing any evidence that she's not authentic. But Daki says, we are no longer the defenders of justice in the eyes of the galaxy. So which makes me think, okay, is it the eyes of the galaxy that matter? Or is it because it's the right thing to do because it's the right thing to do? You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
there's that fear there. But again, he saw a lot of his friends hurt, his friends murdered. But she says, there are innocent people here. We can't let them be terrorized. Right away, Daki gives in. He's got mercenaries, whatever, but he gives in. Well, maybe not gives in, but he acquiesces because he knows he can't fight who he actually is either. This whole thing, this whole series so far is about people. Do I want to fight who I am or do I want to embrace it? You could say that with Lawson, with being a dad. I'm going to embrace the cop part, but can I be all the parts? I'm going to keep throwing it back to Lawson. And I'm not even going to be the least bit sad about it because he's so awesome. But there's some interesting dichotomy here. This is just very relationship driven as well. And I think maybe that's why, again, at the time of this recording, this has 100% still on Rotten Tomatoes after four episodes or 4 chapters. That's pretty cool.
No, for sure. Just a couple of random thoughts that popped in there.
Okay.
With
I just throw things on the whiteboard and we just pull them off.
The conversation, back to the conversation really fast about what the Jedi should do, and they having opposing views. And I think what's interesting is initially I was like, well, the prequels have shown us that the Jedi are not infallible, right?
Sure.
And so that it's not necessarily that the older mentor figure knows more immediately than the than the Padawan. And then of course I went to, well, actually we saw that in the original trilogy, didn't we? That Luke makes some choices in Return of the Jedi that Obi-Wan and Yoda were like, that's not the way to go.
That farm boy had a thing. He knew.
He knew exactly what to do. So I just think it's kind of just continuing that theme that they are, even though he is, the Daki is the mentor, clearly, that he is not, he doesn't take himself as superior in a way. And he doesn't I'm not going to tell you what to do. Let's have a discussion about this. We're equals and we'll decide together. And I think that also makes sense. His wisdom, though, leads him to, let's find a way to do this kind of on the down low. We can still help. And they do, and they still show up.
Yes.
It's not like they abandon. It's like, well, it's the cops' problem. They'll take care of it.
Right. No, I think it's awesome. And I like that you mentioned that because there's nothing condescending about it. Like he sees her as an equal and you don't really get that with other Padawans. So I think with Ezra and Kanan to a very different degree, but they're more like brothers than they are a teacher and apprentice. So this is again very unique. This is another great fight sequence, but this time it's Devin and Daki against Maul, and it's a great fight. Maul actually gets hurt; he gets hit in his robotic legs, which it goes all the way back to the Clone Wars, him getting those. But I love this fight. It shows that we know for all of Maul's power, this is actually a legitimate threat to him. I think I don't know that he's going full bore, but I think he is trying. You know what I mean? I didn't get a sense that this was easy for him, especially because he actually gets hit. But then it has the great little moment where Lawson's like, hey, you go ahead and go. So even though he follows the protocols, he still thinks for himself, which we've kind of already seen. He lets them go because he knows that that's the right thing to do, and they're trying to help him. But then the the kung fu punch of awesome to our collective audience foreheads is the Star Destroyer showing up, because Two Boots has betrayed Lawson. I'm sorry about it. I hope you will forgive me for this. And this is a lot harder to forgive, I think, because it's not good. It's not good. So I'm very excited. He says, without pretending like he doesn't know what's going to happen, I'm very excited to see what's going to happen next week.
Yeah, escalation, right?
Escalation.
There's a couple things just real fast. I mean, you mentioned that Maul, the way Maul treats Devin and Docky is interesting. The fact that he doesn't kill them when he has the opportunity to do that,
right?
I think let's leave this for later. And yes, obviously he's still. I mean, Devin is still on his mind. He still wants that thing to happen, and I think probably killing Docky in front of her would probably. Maybe that's a move a little too far to
probably
forget.
Wouldn't work. Mm-hmm.
That's not so. Maybe that's some of the motivation there. Seeing the lightsabers as the sole lighting source in this fight, I don't know if lightsaber fights have ever looked better.
I agree, and it's like I said last week, it's like there's a ripple of flame on it that keeps going up and down.
And they're so narrow in this series too. They're very, very thin, almost rapiers. It's just gorgeous.
It is
like
and
the choreography too. It just man, they're just every week they're just up in their game.
Well, I think you've upped your game on this podcast too.
I'm enjoying the show. I really, really am.
It's fun. It's great fun. Is there anything else you want to say as we wrap up, or do you want to give your letter grade?
I'm really excited for the next episode to come in and they can take as much time as they need. I mean, at time of this recording, they've already announced that season 2 is coming.
Right.
So who knows how this season will end? Will it end on a cliffhanger, or will it just be another planet next time? I don't care. I'm all in, because we know how it ends with Maul. I don't really need to know exactly where the timeline fits for me. This feels very self-contained. Yes, it's kind of hard to say that legitimately, because I know the rest of the story or whatnot, but I feel like we'll just take this little section out of Maul's life and just explore that, just to get a little bit more nuance and character development, and just to watch him just be deliciously evil and manipulative. And let's do it.
If it helps people, again, it's definitely between Clone Wars and Rebels. Definitely.
Yes.
I mean, it truly is. I'm not trying to be funny, but it sort of explains his situation in the underworld, and and where it relates to. I would wager it's also before Solo too.
I have that feeling too, because he mentioned Crimson Dawn as a separate entity.
Yep, exactly.
I think in the first or second episode, I can't remember which one.
That's really all you need to know as far as
he's thoroughly in charge of Crimson Dawn when we get to Solo. So that was okay. So this is more than 10 years earlier than 10 years. So
it's very possible. Hopefully that will come out soon. So let's give our letter grades. Go ahead, give us your letter grade and final thoughts.
So I'm going to change my letter grade.
Okay.
I had originally had an A-, but I'm going to bump this one up to an A from this conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a solid A. I don't know if there's anything that this episode could have done differently that would have gotten it higher than that. It did all. It met standard.
I will also give it an A. I think it has a lot of exposition that is organic conversation. We get real characterization through moments that are more than about bravado. They're about not only bringing the story forward, but also explaining the nuance in the challenging decisions that people have to make and the repercussions of that. The stuff with Two Boots and Lawson, you could probably spend a lot of time on, and just in and of itself. But then whenever all the main players have come together so far, now we know we've got the looming threat of the Empire at the end, as that Imperial Star Destroyer shows up, right over Janix, and it leaves you wanting more, and that's what you want from good Star Wars.
Listening to Coffee with Kenobi, you are with Dan Z, the podcast you're looking for. This is
What a great delight to have you back on Coffee with Kenobi. You, of course, have amazing conversations all the time in Reading Between the Reels. Please let us know about the show, what's going on, and what do you have in the can for us?
Yeah, Reading Between the Reels is every other Wednesday release. Our most recent episode at the time of this recording is on Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
I've never seen, surprisingly.
You really should. My co-hosts had not seen it either before we watched it. We're doing the Steven Spielberg series at this point.
Yes,
and unlike we did a Nolan series prior to that, and we did those just chronologically released. This one I'm kind of just grouping things more thematically. So we did Jaws because you should start with Jaws, but now we're doing
perfect movie.
It is. We're doing Close Encounters, and then our next episode is going to be E.T. Mm-hmm. So we're following the alien thing, which Justin, one of my co-hosts, has not seen E.T., which is amazing.
Wow, yeah. Come on, Justin.
So we're doing that, and then we're going to do War of the Worlds to kind of just do this trilogy of alien films right now.
Okay.
So it's been a lot of fun, and Spielberg. What can you say about Steven Spielberg? And then John Williams every time too. So
yeah.
So I've enjoyed it very much.
So we can find that anywhere, all over podcasts and social media as well.
Anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can find us on X and Instagram, Facebook. We got a TikTok, we got YouTube Shorts, and all the places the kids like.
And just like that, our journey through the galaxy for today has come to a close. A big thank you to Craig Dickinson for joining me and talking about chapters 3 and 4 of Maul Shadow Lord. I hope you are enjoying the conversation as much as we are enjoying bringing it to you. I want to thank all of you for listening to and supporting Coffee with Kenobi, whether it's here through the show, whether it's to supporting the show through MEI Travel and Mouse Fan Travel, or being a member of our Patreon page, the Coffee with Kenobi CWK Alliance. A special thank you to our official travel partner, MEI Travel and Mouse Fan Travel, as I just mentioned. Looking at planning your next magical vacation to Walt Disney World, Disneyland, or even a Disney cruise? Want to explore Galaxy's Edge or attend Star Wars Celebration? Becky Mankin and her team will get you there with no cost, no obligation quotes, and the kind of peace of mind we all appreciate. Learn more at coffeewithkenobi.com/mousefantravel. It truly is an amazing way to support me and this podcast. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share the show with your fellow Star Wars friends. You can find us on social media or visit coffeewithkenobi.com for articles, merch, and more ways to connect. Until next time, I'm Dan Zare, and this is the podcast you're looking for. For all things Star Wars, news, reviews, videos, and more, head to our home base, coffeewithkenobi.com. Don't forget to join the CWK Cafe on Facebook at coffeewithkenobi.com/community, our family-friendly, spoiler-free group for all your Star Wars thoughts, comments, and conversation. This podcast is possible thanks to the incredible support of the CWK Alliance. Want to help keep the show brewing? For as little as $1 a month, you can join the CWK Alliance and get access to CWK Pour-Over, our exclusive weekly audio and video podcast. Learn more at coffeewithkenobi.com/CWK Alliance. And know this, 10% of your monthly contributions goes directly to the St. Jude Children's Hospital. Want to connect? You can email me at danz@coffeewithkenobi.com. Follow me on X at Mr. Zare, MRZEHR, Instagram, Threads, at DanZareCWK, and Blue Sky. I'm also on LinkedIn. You can follow Coffee with Kenobi across social media on X, Instagram, Threads, Pinterest, and Blue Sky, and give us a like on Facebook at facebook.com/coffeewithkenobi. And if you want to send an email to the show, you can email us feedback at coffeewithkenobi.com. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you'll find over 700 videos, including past live shows, events, and this podcast. Please take a moment to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It really helps more Star Wars fans find our little corner of the galaxy. Do you need a speaker for your next event? Visit danzmedia.com. I love to discuss mythology, leadership, storytelling, or create something tailored to your audience. And finally, grab your CWK gear at coffeewithkenobi.com/shop and show your support in style.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.